In this video, I'm going to go over getting started with Godot and creating a basic collect and avoid game, basically what we went over in class. When you first open up Godot, you'll probably get a message about not having any projects. You can go ahead and hit cancel and it should bring you to a screen that looks like this. Yours will probably be empty because you don't have any projects in here. So let's go ahead and create a new project. You can give your project a name. It's helpful if you use your name in the project name, as this helps me know whose project it is when I'm grading it. You can also select a location for your project. I'm going to go ahead and place mine in a folder called Godot Projects. Create the folder, and then go ahead and create the game. It may take a few moments to get everything set up for you. We're going to be making a 2D game, so I'm going to go ahead and switch to the 2D view. It has started us with a scene here. One of the things to know about Godot is that everything is a scene. This includes things like levels, but also things like your sprites, your character sprites, your player sprites, your enemy sprites, anything that you're going to be, any little object that you're going to be interacting with in the game. So to get started, I've got some little images that you can use for the starting, collecting, avoid game. You can find them on the D2L page. I've extracted mine to the desktop in this little folder called Sprites. So to put them into Godot, I'm just going to go ahead and select them, drag them, and drop them over into our file system here. So I should have my bird, my bug, and my lizard. So let's go ahead and make a basic player sprite. To start out with, you're going to need a parent node. You don't want any of these ones that are here already. We want to use what's called Area 2D. So I'm going to hit Custom Node, and then I'm just going to go ahead and type in area until I get these popping up. You don't want just area. You want the one here that says Area 2D. And I'm going to hit Create. Alright, now we've got it. You'll see that there's a little error here. Go ahead and click that so you can see what it says. What it says is it has no shape, and so we need to add a collision shape 2D. So that's exactly what we're going to do. So I'm going to right-click, Add Child, and look for collision shape 2D. Now again, you don't want collision shape up here, you want the one that says collision shape 2D. And we'll hit create. You can see we've still got an error, so I'm going to pop that up real quick. You must provide a shape for the collision shape 2D, so I'm going to show you how to do that. Over here, you have your inspector, and you'll see that shape is empty. So I'm going to go ahead and hit the little down arrow, and you'll see that there's a couple different ones. For now, I recommend either rectangle shape or circle shape. Don't worry too much about the other ones, but we might get into some of those later. So I'm going to make a rectangle shape. You'll see that that has created a little blue box, or a blue circle if you chose circle. You can hit F with that selected to center it on your screen, and zoom in with the scroll wheel on your mouse. So, what this is what will be the interactive part of your character here. In game engines, the interactive part is not necessarily the same as the visual part. It's up to you as the programmer to make sure that they are the same. So this is the interactive part. Now let's add the visual part. Our player is going to be this little lizard here. So I'm going to drag him out and drop him into my scene. And you'll see that it's created a lizard sprite type over here in our scene. Now what we've got here is this is called parenting in the hierarchy. And you can see what's parented to what by what tab it's in. So right now, Area 2D is the root, Collision Shape is the child of Area 2D, and Lizard is the child of Collision Shape. That's not quite what we want. We want Lizard to be the child of Area 2D, so that Collision Shape and Lizard are at the same level. See how they're indented the same amount? This is the basic setup you're going to use for all of your sprites, all of your characters in Godot. So remember it. One thing I always recommend that you do is once you've got this set up is go ahead and name your root node something useful. This will become important later. So I'm going to right click, rename, and call it something like lizard or player. Something that will be unique to this particular object later in your game. Let's go ahead and make our collision shape match our lizard shape a little more closely. You can see that there's these little red handles, so you can use those to make the collision shape bigger, and then you can move the lizard around if you need to make sure he's kind of centered in there. It doesn't have to match exactly. Believe it or not, most games use rectangles or circles for collision shapes, and you probably almost have never noticed, although occasionally you might get something where a collision up here doesn't make sense because there's no actual lizard there. But for this game, it will be perfectly okay. Now that we've got our lizard sprite created, let's go ahead and save him. So I'm going to right-click and do Save Scene As. It's called it lizard.tscene, which is fine for now. If you wanted to call it something else, you could. And I'm going to go ahead and save that, and you'll see that it's popped up over here with a little clipboard icon. Now that we've got that, let's go ahead and make a scene for our game to exist in. So this is going to be our player character. Now we need a scene that's going to be our level. So I'm going to go up here to Scene, New Scene. It's going to be an empty scene. This is going to be our main level scene, so I want to go ahead and use this 2D scene root node that's right here. So I'm going to click that. Node 2D, I'm going to rename this to be main, or main level. If you have multiple levels in your game, you may want to call them level 1, level 2, etc. And I'm going to zoom out a bit. You can use the pan mode here, this little hand tool, to move things around. So I'm going to move it and zoom until you can see this shape here. So where these crosshairs are, where this cross is, that's what's called the point of origin. For your sprites, you want them centered on that, but for our level, what's going to be important is this square right here, this rectangle right here. That's going to be basically what's on the screen. That's the shape of your level. There are ways to change this, but don't worry about it right now. For this first one, just stick with the defaults. So let's add our lizard character to the scene. You're going to want to make sure you select lizard.tscene, not lizard.png. That will not give you the right thing. You can do this one of two ways. You can either drag it out into the scene and drop it, or you can drag it up here and you have to drop it onto main. You can't drop it down here. It's got to be onto main. It's going to be a child of main. So we should have main and lizard now. Just to make sure everything's working properly, let's go ahead and run our game. We're going to first want to save our main scene, so I'm going to go ahead and do that. I'm going to let it just call it main, that's fine. Hit save, and then I'm going to hit this little run button up here in the corner. It will say no main scene has been defined, so let's select one. We want main, because we want that to be our level scene, so I'm going to hit open, and it should run. And there we have our lizard in the screen there. If your lizard's off up into the corner, you can go ahead and just move him in your scene view and try again. And now that we've seen that it's working, I'm going to go ahead and close that. So this is your basic setup. You're going to have your characters as scenes and your scene as scenes. In the next video, we'll go over making it do something.